Bobby Johnson, well done, Manchester United.
Beckham, into Sheringham, and Solskjaer has won it! And it's half saved it! United again! Ready! A magnificent goal by Robin van Persie!
Welcome to United Hour, your official Red Cafe podcast for all things Manchester United. I'm your host, Nick.
I'm Colm.
And I'm Jamie.
Yeah, welcome to Jamie, also known as Vault Dweller on Red Cafe for our CAF listeners. First appearance on the show. I know you've been a long-time listener and we've always valued the kind of feedback and everything you've given us over the time.
Yeah, it's good to be here, man. As you say, a long-time listener from the old days, from the first episodes of the podcast, so glad to finally be on and have a chat with you guys.
Yeah, I always think it's interesting when it comes on you to talk about what's your route to United, and I think we had a bit of a chat before, and basically it sounds like your uncle down south brainwashed you into being a United fan by sending you a United shirt and a statue of Ryan Giggs when you were a kid, was it?
Yeah, that's right. So back in the 90s, the mid-90s, my uncle started sending me up strips of United. The first one was the one with the Old Trafford stadium kind of into the stitching.
Yeah, I remember
spoke
that
to you guys
shirt.
before,
Yeah,
the one I'm
Yeah.
in. And our statue of Ryan Giggs, that was the kind of the first things that got me interested in Man United, and then being able to watch them on Sky, on BBC if the FA Cup was on ITV if the Champions League was on. I got a lot of exposure to them, so probably from that point onwards I started following them more and more. So yeah, I think it's my uncle that got me hooked on United, it's fair to say.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, you've also got a bit of a soft spot for Newcastle United because you actually worked as a ball boy at Premier League games over there, right?
Yeah, that's right. So for 15 years I lived in the northeast of England, just in Darlington, and one of my neighbours, him and his dad were involved with the ball boys at Newcastle, and not long after I moved down I became friends with him, and he just knew that I was interested in football, and one time he asked me did I want to go and fill in for somebody and be a ball boy at Newcastle. I think they were actually playing in the League Cup against Dagenham and Redbridge or somebody like that. So I just went along, really enjoyed it, and then from that point on, for a couple of seasons, I was a ball boy up at Newcastle. It was the Premier League games, any domestic games as well. So I actually managed to watch Newcastle Man United quite a few times.
Yeah, all right. So we're talking Bobby Robson era, right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, no, cool.
Jamie, did you ever do any of those wee cheeky moves where the ball doesn't give the ball back to Mourinho or anything like that?
No, I was told as well that this is the thing. I remember the organiser knew I was a big Man United fan, and a few times I was told off for not celebrating Newcastle goals against Man United. So if there was Man United Newcastle games, I kept a quiet profile and just clapped my hands if Shearer scored or something like that. But other times, yeah, I would fervently celebrate, and you could go on the pitch at the full time and shake the players' hands and ask them if you wanted a water bottle and things like that as well. So as a young kid, that's just living the dream, really.
I don't know. Never mind a kid.
Yeah. So what kind of players would you have been watching?
I did like Gary Speed, actually.
Yeah.
When I used to watch him, I just used to think he was just a Rolls Royce of a player. So he just had a great engine. He was just buzzing all over the pitch. Nobby Solano, just for the kind of flair part of it, just because it was just there was nothing that guy couldn't do. Shearer's just another player I just admired, as you can imagine, for obvious reasons. And I like Shea Given. I used to be a bit of a goalkeeper when I was younger, so I always like watching Shea Given as well.
Yeah, fair enough. No, yeah, it's cool to have done that back then.
Quality.
But yeah, look, let's get back onto a hectic week for United. I mean, we'll be talking about 3 matches this week. It's only been a week since the last podcast. We've already had 3 games, which is pretty crazy. So, we're recording this on Monday, 24 hours after, unfortunately, crashing out of the FA Cup to Chelsea. Then, in the middle, we've got a kind of, routine win against Crystal Palace. And then, we started exactly a week ago with 2-2 against Southampton. So, it's not been a great week after, I think, on the last pod, we were talking about the best team in the country and the best form.
Still are.
How many we'd gone. So that was obviously the jinx for the week coming. But yeah, look, I mean, I don't think we should still be too down, really. I'm seeing a lot of, I mean, I did not have like a lot of positive vibes for this game. It was all kind of set up, I thought, for Chelsea to win. They had 48 hours extra kind of recovery time than us. For them, it's a short trip to Wembley, whereas we're coming down from Manchester. So yeah, for me, I wasn't feeling it. And as well as I think regular listeners to the podcast will know, I'm always one who's saying, look, top four to me is far, far more important than the FA Cup. And I would be quite happy for even a lot more rotation than we saw. But it's been interesting to see. I've been seeing a lot of people complaining, saying, look, this game was important. We want to win the FA Cup. He should have played like the first team, but just couldn't really see how we could do that after having played like 4 games in a row with the same lineup. I mean, Jamie, are you somebody who would you prioritise the FA Cup, or is it really top four is the thing you think we should be going for?
No, for me, it's absolutely the Champions League spaces we need to be looking at. Yesterday, it's not so much the lineup, the formation confused me when I saw the lineup. I understood that we've played against Chelsea a few times with that formation, so I could understand from that point of view. But it was a lot of changes in a short period of time for that game. But back to the question, I would much rather prioritise the Champions League. So even yesterday, when it was kind of obvious for a while that we were going to be beat, I was more interested in just trying to get the team through the game with no more injuries, because Wednesday's massive and Sunday's massive, and as far as I'm concerned, the Champions League is an absolute must for next year. So I'd much rather be finishing the top four.
Yeah, and I think Colm, you're on the same wavelength there as well, right?
100%. Like I totally agree. Wednesday and Sunday. I mean, I would have taken if someone said you can get spanked 5-0 by Chelsea and you're guaranteed top four, I'd shake your hand and be very, very pleased with that deal, to be honest. I also think, we'll dissect it in more detail, I guess, but I also think a loss yesterday isn't going to be the worst thing for our season, and perhaps could be a motivational tool for those last two games. If that loss humbles the players a little bit, brings them back down to earth, brings the fans back down to earth a little bit, and encourages them to maybe get a bit more fire in their bellies and a bit more juice in their legs for the last two games, I think that's no bad thing, really, to be honest. So, in the age-old mantra of, can a loss ever be a win? Depending on what happens in these next two games, you could look back and care very little about that Chelsea game. Notwithstanding how abject their performance was, both tactically and from the players themselves, that's a different thing. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's the end of the world.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the big question is, on telly, they were giving a lot of credit to Chelsea, and Martin Keown was talking about this amazing performance. I was like, what is he talking about? Like, we've gifted them goals. We've been absolutely awful. Like, Chelsea were not that special. I just thought we were totally off it. And it's not that surprising. Like I said, we've played so many games. And this, I've always been a big Ole in kind of supporter. But my big bugbear and the big negative has been kind of squad management. And I do think certain players have been overplayed. And it's something I talked about even earlier in the season. And I think, again, since lockdown, I think that the squad could have been managed in a different way. But then, yeah, maybe we wouldn't have had as good kind of results in the league. So, yeah, it's difficult to look at it. I mean, if we go back, yeah, you mentioned, Jamie, the formation. We hadn't played this three at the back since lockdown. This was the first time. But we did actually, the last time we played it was that last game, the Manchester derby against City, which I was actually at. So, yeah, it's all the way back to like early March. Seems a lifetime ago, anything before lockdown. But we played that same system in that match, and it was actually a very similar lineup. We had the Fred, Matic, Bruno midfield. We had AWB and Williams playing wide. James was up front, but against City, started with Martial versus Rashford. There was a couple of other different players as well, because buys in for Shaw. But otherwise, it's a very similar lineup. And obviously, that day we had a great win. It worked perfectly. But yeah, just from the get-go, it just didn't seem to be suiting us, and it just didn't get going. I mean, Colm, what do you put it down to? I mean, for me, it's all just about tiredness, really. And I can't really say much more than that. I've just thought Chelsea, those 2 days made the biggest difference to me, really.
Yeah, look, I mean, tiredness has been a factor, and we'll discuss it throughout the three performances that we're probably going to look at today. I don't think you can get away from that at all when you're looking at things objectively. The 2 days on Chelsea, total bummer, and I think just blatantly unfair on us from the FA. I don't understand. These matches were scheduled during lockdown. There's no Europa. Thursday night dilemma where we have to play Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, and something like that. So I don't really understand, other than money and TV congestion in terms of showing United, showing Chelsea, showing all those games, why we were so blatantly prejudiced against in terms of that scheduling. I think it's a bit of a joke. But I'd then put that aside. It's done at the end of the day. We can give that excuse all day long, but it detract from actually analysing, who was good, who was bad, and all the rest of it. Tiredness, obviously a huge factor. I think lots of players have looked extremely leggy over the last 3 or 4 games, and that has contributed to why we're still sort of seeing at times some very scintillating football, and then large swathes of games where we're struggling to put ourselves in those positions and kind of getting lost and basically outdone by Chelsea and Southampton physically. And that's tricky, and that's a concern because there's no let up here until the season ends, and then there's a short break before Europa, but they need to get over that. And I agree with you. I would have expected more rotation before this game, but the proof's in the pudding. It's very hard to criticise Ole for what has been such a terrific run. We weren't in the luxurious position Leicester and Chelsea were in that we could just see out the status quo and we remain in third or fourth. We had a fairly substantial points total to hunt down, and I think that gets lost in how good we've been, in that the job we had on, whether it was 6 points, 10 points against Chelsea or Leicester, or whatever it was, that's not just the easiest thing to do. There was very little margin for error, and we have made no error up until the Southampton game, apart from Spurs first day back. So the luxury of rotating that squad, ultimately the proof will be in the pudding at the end of the season in these last 2 games. If we're totally burnt out and he keeps playing the same players and that doesn't go well for us, then okay, that's a mistake. But up to now, I think it's very hard to criticise that. I think tactically and formation wise, the change was wrong. I think he could have brought in any kind of players he wanted. I think changing the formation was the big mistake.
Yeah, it did seem to be. But like I said, look, we have played this formation well before. It's worked for us, especially in big games. But you could just see from the start that it just wasn't going. And, when we had that Bailly injury, instead of trying to go like for like, he did change it like pretty early on. I think he realised himself that it's not going in the right direction. And Martial came in. But that, for me, is actually, in the end of it, is one of the negatives, that none of the players got a rest, really, and we've lost anyway.
No.
The players who've played way too many minutes so far. I mean, Maguire has played every minute of every game since lockdown, which is pretty crazy given the kind of schedule we've had. And Bruno as well has racked up minutes, even though he has been substituted here and there, so hasn't played every single minute. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is the other one who's played a ton of minutes, and Marcus Rashford as well. I mean, yeah, they're the ones who have all been kind of pushing, I'd say, should have had a bit more time out than they have done up to this point. Because, that's the thing. When we come to the next game, can any of those players be left out? And not really when there's big matches coming up. So when are they going to get a rest? That's the only worry for me now, that we've lost this match anyhow. And then it goes from there.
For me, I think there's a few problems from yesterday. As I said earlier, the formation was wrong. I understand we've had results with it this season, even just before the lockdown, but I just looked at the formation yesterday and immediately I thought, we're on the back foot a wee bit there. I'm not so sure that was the cleverest thing to do. But weirdly, I then thought we then grew into the game. And I was having a debate with, I can't remember, but a user on the Red Calf who was saying we were outdone tactically. And I was like, I'm not really sure of that, because I saw at half time, despite the fact we were 1-0 down, we had more attempts on target than Chelsea. We had more attempts off target than Chelsea. We had other greater attacking statistics than Chelsea, other than the goal. So I thought we actually grew into the game. And then when the Bailey injury happened and he changed the formation just before half time, I was a bit like, I'm not so sure you should be doing that just now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe leave the formation change for a little bit later in the game, because we've actually managed to grow into the game a wee bit here. But more than that as well, his individual errors were just criminal yesterday. I mean, I can't believe the hate even started, because Romero is our cup goalie and hasn't let us down. Up till yesterday, we'd only conceded 1 goal in the FA Cup the whole year. So to change and put De Gea in yesterday, I just thought was strange anyway. Williams, I've had a concussion in the past, and I know fine well it takes longer than a week to shake off the full effects of it, so I was surprised to see him in the lineup, even if he was medically cleared, which I imagine he would have been. I still think coming back into such a big game so quickly was maybe just a bit too quick for him.
I think with Shaw out, maybe that even pushed like him to being further up the pecking order.
It's true, but Timbo, acquitted himself very well in the past game and looked really sharp and fit and strong, even if he's not, I'm sure he had a bit of rustiness, but, look, it's a tough one to dissect and hindsight's 2020, but I thought I was surprised both Williams and Wan-Bissaka started, and I appreciate he probably thought that they were going to play Pulisic and that we needed Wan-Bissaka for that threat. But I mean, Wan-Bissaka just looks like a dead man walking, like he's a shadow of himself.
Yeah,
and
he needs a rest.
He looks shattered, yeah. He looks tired.
And and I mean, he was, I don't even want to say pub player standard yesterday. It was awful. And the players you named who have played the most minutes were the players who played the worst. I mean, Maguire.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence.
I know some people think he's made some high profile errors during the year and that. I think broadly he's been extremely good. But yesterday he was diabolical. And as you say, that's not necessarily a surprise given the players who have been absolutely run into the ground are the players who had such an off day. I mean, I think the other thing with that Chelsea game is just, I think the formation was wrong because I don't think you can say, look, we played that way against City, and we played that way against City probably previously, we played that way against Chelsea previously. I appreciate the 2-0 City game before lockdown is a not too distant memory, but broadly, we are not the same team now that we were then.
Yeah, I'd agree with that actually.
I know we were already on that uptick in form, but I think mentally, and I think the way we play, I think there has already been a significant change in that, and I think it's changed the players' mentalities and their habits on the pitch. And I think it's not the easiest thing for you to say to a team that's 19 games unbeaten, in a really rich vein of form, playing expressive attacking football, dominating the ball, to say, hey, guys, put the brakes on that, bench it for a week, and let's go back to this hungry, ferocious, tight, combative kind of performance. It's very difficult just to completely 180 your kind of mentality in terms of a tactical sense. And I don't think the players will be in the mind frame to have that same resilience that they had in defending tightly and launching into the counter, because they haven't needed to do that for the last 8 weeks. They've been doing the exact opposite. So whilst, yes, we did do that at City quite recently, I think we're a very different team now than that team. And I think it was almost reductive of Ole to go back to that. Whilst I do understand it, I think he could have stuck with a 4-2-3-1 and still rotated players in. I think he could have played a Gallo in a 4-2-3-1, would have worked very well. I think he could have brought Lingard in on the right or in the middle if he wanted to. He could have had James in there. He could have had Timbo, I thought, who acquitted himself quite well. He still could have played Fred and Matic. So you'd have the same level of rotation that the five at the back gave you. And actually, our issues at the moment are in frailties at the back. Luke Shaw's injured. Wan-Bissaka desperately needs a rest. We have been able to be gotten at the back lately. So, piling defenders into that area when we don't necessarily have a whole pile of them fit, maybe it wasn't the best idea anyway. And I just think that was the mistake, notwithstanding the fact that Chelsea mirrored us. And it was probably quite obvious that they were going to do that. Five at the back works great if you're playing two in midfield and four at the back on the opposite side of things. But Chelsea just did the exact same thing we did, but ever so slightly better. And I agree with you, Nick. I don't think they were very good. The game was awful.
Yeah, it was a terrible game. That 4-2-3-1, as you're saying, Colm, that's what I expected to see yesterday. I expected to see a 4-2-3-1. I expected to see probably Lingard, Gallo. James was already in the team yet, but I expected to see him anyway. I expected Fosu Mensah to get another game at left back. I probably expected Dalot even.
I don't know what's happened to Dalot actually. Yeah, Dalot is
surely gone. I mean, if he can't get a start yesterday with our fullback issues, then
he wasn't even on the bench yesterday. If you're not even making the bench in a game like that, then yeah, that's a pretty big sign that the manager's not fancying you anymore. I mean, on Fosu Mensah, I do think it's a big ask for him to play 2 games after he literally hasn't played for us for actually several years. I mean, I know he's played for Palace or whatever in the meantime, and yeah, we'll probably get on to that when we focus on the Palace game. He had a decent enough. It was out of the blue kind of start he got, but yeah, did well enough.
Totally.
But I think expecting him to play again after it's been that long out is a bit much.
Is it as much as expecting Wan-Bissaka to play every single minute of every game?
Look, it's a point.
When you have tangible evidence to say he is fading hugely and starting to, and that hangs him out to dry, because Wan-Bissaka has been, for many people, probably player of the year. I have huge reservations over his quality with his feet, huge reservations, but I do accept that he's been very good in his first season and could possibly still grow into that, even though I personally don't think he has the technical level required for a right back at United. But playing him at the moment is just kind of hanging him out to dry a wee bit, I think. And Yeah, I mean, yes, 2 starts in a week for Timbo is a lot, but he looked fiery and he looked up for it and he looked like he...
Yeah, and I
was,
guess he should be fresh. Yeah, he should be fresh.
Exactly, 3 years without a start for United. He's busting to get back into it. And when he came on against Chelsea, I thought he was one of the better performers again, you know? So, look, it's all hindsight's 2020 stuff, but we could put out that 4-2-3-1 that me and Jamie are talking about and get hammered as well. You know, I do think there was a bit where that game was just beyond us before a ball was kicked. You know, we'd beaten Chelsea too many times. It was a weird non-event of a tie with an empty stadium in a semi-final where both teams want to win, but both teams are not guaranteed fourth. So it was a kind of a very nervy, punchy, odd affair, you know, that no one really wanted to go and take a hold of. And then we just gave it to Chelsea, basically. But I think that was kind of written before a ball was kicked.
I think we gave it to them to an extent. But one thing that really annoyed me yesterday was the sheer persistence of fouls that we were having against us just non-stop.
Yeah.
And
18
at one point.
Yeah.
And you're like, how can Mike Dean not give one booking?
Yeah.
It was crazy. And yeah, Paul Pogba came on, had one like half bad tackle and was given a yellow card.
Yeah.
I was actually really shocked when they said, yeah, it's the first yellow card of the game. Like I said, there were several things like, Zuma and...
Kovacic, yeah.
Yeah.
But even the one, Azpilicueta done one right through the back of Marcus Rashford on the halfway line. Yeah. And then not long after that, we were clearing a corner, Bruno brings the ball down and tries to spread it wide. And Azpilicueta just kicks him in a very sensitive area, but kicks round him, doesn't get anything on the ball, and just kills our momentum there, right in the edge of our own box as we're trying to break out. That's 2 in the space of 5 minutes. And he wasn't even spoken to by the ref.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something they often talk about. Pep Guardiola teams as well do this kind of thing. You know, you can one side people say, oh, this team's so great at closing down. But really, they're just great at making those little fouls at the right time that get away with not getting yellow cards and just keep doing it again and again. And yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it up because it's something that, I'd noticed as well. And I think they were giving way too much credit to this Chelsea team. I mean, after all, like you said, there was a crazy amount of injury time in that first half because of Bailly, who I think the update is saying should be all right if he needs to play in the next game. But yeah, there was blood. Second game in a row where we've had a player down with actually blood cut and everything, which is not good to see at all. But yeah, we were getting into reaching half time at least, and it was right on the bloody stroke. That was the thing about the 2 goals. That was the killer, the timing of them. One just before half time, one just after half time. And that just really threw away the tie for us. Whereas, we weren't great, but we were also thought we'd still be in it, especially coming out in the second half. But yeah, look, we have to talk about David De Gea, really. It's been a theme for a few weeks and it's something we've discussed before. I had kind of been defending him, saying, that there was a lot of blame to be put on defenders at a certain point as well. It wasn't always totally his fault, although he could have been done better. But I mean, this time, really, there is actually a mistake again from the defence, but still, it's a shot that even I would expect to save in net.
That's good pressure there from James, and he's given it away to Mason Mount. And Mount just lining up the shot, and it's found a way through De Gea. Oh, what a time to score right at the start of the second half.
That's great. Organised. It's got to go
That's a big mistake from De Gea. Mason Mount makes it 2-0 for Chelsea.
I mean, I ranted about it probably 2 or 3 weeks ago now, and it's only entrenched my opinion, and the sight of him only angers me more. I'm totally off the deep end with David De Gea. I don't think it's redeemable in any way, shape or form, but I also appreciate that it's quite a sticky and difficult situation for United and Ole because of his wage, because of his contract, because of the fact that I think it'd be quite hard to shift him. But I mean, it's just, it makes me lose my mind because, okay, he's now made, I think, double digits errors leading to goals since over the last 2 seasons, something like that. The highest out of anyone in the league now by a margin. He's out in his own. He was tied, I think, at the top with someone else, probably Kepa, but he's out right now, leader of that category. Those are horrendous, and you don't expect them from him. And I think they're also in large part because he knows his position is not under threat in any way, shape, or form. As Jimmy said earlier, Romero was our cup goalkeeper and should be starting that match every day of the week, and he wasn't. De Gea was brought in because it's a big game, which is ridiculous. De Gea then has made a catalogue of errors over the last few weeks, and still Romero will never get a sniff at that number 1 spot. Never. Ole will not drop him. And what does that do for De Gea in terms of his desire to actually improve or to iron out these mistakes or to take away that complacency? Because for me, that's what he is. These are not mistakes that are calamitous or whatever else. They're they're basic, and they're just a flaw in concentration or confidence or something. But they shouldn't. He's such a better keeper than those mistakes are showing. If you park even the mistakes, you then have the issues with the command of his box. I think that back four instantly is improved by having a commanding figure behind them in terms of set pieces, corners. Again, the Southampton game, that ball comes right into the 6-yard box when the back four that are confident in their keeper could have stepped out and just let him clear it away. But you would never, ever, ever get that with De Gea, and we just accept that now because he makes Hollywood saves occasionally. And then the third thing you have is his distribution with his feet, which is absolutely awful as well. I mean, it's just, to me, there's so many things mounting up that are so negative, and there's the only one slight redeeming feature is that he occasionally makes brilliant saves, but I'm not even convinced they're that more amazing or that more common than a lot of other top keepers or a lot of other average keepers. And I just think it's an issue, now a big issue, and I would love to see Ole make a statement about where this team's going and his dedication to youth and a rebuild by making the difficult decision and getting Dean Henderson in. And that is not to say Dean Henderson is the be-all and end-all in terms of goalkeeping talent or our future number one for the next 10 years, but he is more deserving of that position now than David De Gea is, and I think it would send a real clear message throughout the team. And I appreciate De Gea is probably a leader in that team and well-liked, but he's at the end of his time, and I think that is so apparent. I don't see him getting any better. In fact, I think he'll keep getting worse.
Yeah, I don't even think it's a difficult decision, to be honest. You say I don't even think it is a difficult decision, but I think possibly
it is.
Next season, David De Gea might still start the season as number one. But I think the first time he makes a mistake, Henderson will be given his chance, and then it's up to him to keep hold of that jersey. That's the kind of way I see it going. But I expect Dean Henderson to be our first choice goalie by the end of next season. But I don't know if he will be at the start. But here and now, though, we've still got these couple of Premier League games to play. Would you even think about dropping De Gea now? Do you think it's become that much of an issue? I mean, that's the crazy thing. Like, I agree with you, Jamie, that in this game, really, it's crazy that Romero didn't play. I mean, it's difficult to drop David De Gea in the Premier League, but in this match, there were so many chances to at least give Romero and even give De Gea a rest. Maybe even he needs a rest. We talk about the outfield players, but yeah, mentally and all, maybe even he needed to have a day off, and it might have helped him. So yeah, I do think that was a mistake. But yeah, do you think there's any? I don't think I personally doubt it happens, but right now, could you think Ole could make the call even to leave him out now? Because maybe it's something that could cost us in these last couple of games.
I think you might have to. I think after not just the performance yesterday, just if you look over the last 18 months, I think it's becoming a serious problem. I've already said that about Romero, and we all agree Romero should have played yesterday, no doubt about it. But I don't see how, when you're making errors like that, you can't replace the keeper, just even for the short term, if you put the number 2 in goal for a couple of games. Because if you make mistakes like that anywhere else on the pitch, you don't start the next game. That's just the way it is. If you're making mistakes like that at centre half, up front, out in the wing, you don't play the next game. Somebody comes in and takes your spot, and you then need to get it back. You need to earn it back. As Colm's saying, the problem with De Gea, I think more than anything, is concentration and complacency. He's just too complacent because he knows his spot is just not under threat whatsoever.
But he should know that Henderson. Everybody's talking about Henderson. He knows that he's out there, so he should know that I need to keep my spot.
But that's an abstract threat. He's not at the club.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
that's more what I mean. And I'm more meaning at the club right now.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, next season he'll be thinking, yeah, okay, I'm seriously under threat for next season. But at this moment in time, he knows that Romero isn't going to seriously threaten him for his jersey.
I also think, with regards to De Gea, it's also just confidence issue. He's a serious confidence. I mean, we saw that when he was first at the club, and I think and I don't mean to say he's weak. Look, professional footballers are not weak, I don't think, in any sense, really. And I think he just gets himself into a rut of mistakes, breeding more mistakes, and then he's playing within himself and overthinking things, and he's not going with his feet naturally the way he would. I mean, that first goal, I think you should save that. I know it's close. It's not unforgivable, but I would still expect a United keeper to save it.
I would expect him to save it, and I think the problem is, I didn't really blame him the first time when I actually saw the goal go in, but the more I saw the replays, I'm like, you put De Gea of 3-4 years ago in there, that's cleared with his foot. He doesn't even think about it. He just sticks his foot out and clears the ball.
And that's where I think it's a confidence thing, in that he's doing unnatural movements for himself. He's not doing things the way he normally would, and that's what causes the mistakes. And I just don't see that getting better for him at the moment.
Yeah, because he's thinking about it, as you say. He's too busy thinking about what he's going to do rather than just playing his normal game. And that first goal was the epitome of that. The second goal is inexcusable.
Yeah.
That, all right, we know that. But the first goal, when that ball's flicked so close to him, and people can say, yeah, that Giroud is really near him, and that's difficult to save. I appreciate that. But we've seen the save at Anfield he made a few years ago. I think it was from Emre Can or whoever.
Yeah.
He's not even near that ball. The ball's literally going in the middle of the goal, and he just sticks his foot out, crosses into the middle of the goal, and clears the ball. He done it against Arsenal as well, from close range against Sanchez. So he can do it. But at the moment, I think his confidence is just rock bottom. So I can't see how he starts against West Ham.
There was a catalogue of errors leading up to those chances, obviously, as well. You know, it wasn't just that De Gea dropped us in it, but if he makes those 2 saves as he should, game finishes 1-1, we win on penalties. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, like I say, I think the kind of media narrative about us getting completely outplayed by Chelsea was not anywhere near the actual reality. Like, yeah, we were poor, but like I say, there was a lot of Chelsea fouls in there, and apart from, they didn't have so many chances. It's not like Chelsea had chance after chance or anything like that. We just kind of handed them goals at the worst time.
I think one of the things that made it probably look worse than it was is that we just couldn't play out of our own half. So although Chelsea weren't creating a whole pile themselves, and there was kind of a lot of the possession being shared, we just couldn't get out of our own half. It just seems like if Pogba isn't on the pitch, we really, really, really struggle with that, and that's a huge issue, I think.
I think the tiredness is affecting the passing.
Yeah. For me, it really does come down to that.
I mean, we've all played football, you know, when you're knackered.
Yeah.
And even if you're trying to make a 5-yard pass or a 10-yard pass, it gets more difficult the more tired you are. And we know fine well we're running these players into the ground because
exactly.
We don't trust the squad.
With those passes, it's like the mind is willing but the body is weak. Like, you know exactly what you want to do, and your legs just don't do it for you.
Yeah, we're just not completing the simple things, and that's compounding everything else that we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think that is the big takeaway from this week. You know, it was the most difficult part of our schedule where we knew we were going to have 3 games in 1 week, and this is the time when you really do need to use that squad. I mean, all right, we've got the really bad news out of the way with the Chelsea game. If we kind of start focusing a bit on the Palace game, which is the good news of the week, we did have the kind of, to me, it was a shock to see Timothy Fosu-Mensah on the team sheet. We've already given him a mention. And then, Jesse Lingard as well, was not expecting to be seeing, but got some minutes in that game over there. So there was it's been a little bit at least of rotation over there, but it was partly enforced, seeing as I think Williams and Shaw were not an option for that game. As I say, it's still kind of strange to see that Dalot doesn't get any minutes anywhere in this kind of run. But look, there was a lot of positives. We don't want to focus just on this Chelsea game. Look, that Palace game was a win. It took us actually into the top 3, even though briefly. But the results have been going really great for us through lockdown. And if we look at where we were kind of a week ago, it's actually been a good week for us in the Premier League. We're now, equal on points with Leicester, just 1 point behind Chelsea. So for me, it's actually, we come out of this week actually positive compared to where we recorded the last podcast exactly a week ago. People will all focus obviously on the most recent game, Chelsea. But I think that United fans need to just, forget that one. We're out of the cup, but just say, look, we're odds on now to be finishing in the top 4 and see what we can do with that. And then, that Palace United game as well, the things you'd want to focus on is the great play between like Rashford, Martial, who are now like kind of in a competition of who's going to score the most goals this season, both like going neck and neck and even like setting each other up. It's been mentioned before, shades of kind of the stereotype like comparison is York and Cole, even though they're not either anywhere like the same kind of players, but as just kind of talking about these combinations that you can get. And Rashford in particular had quite a slow start, I thought, this season. He'd been injured, coming down back into lockdown, but now he seems to be hitting form just at the right time as well, and maybe taking up the mantle where maybe Greenwood couldn't maintain that crazy form he was having. And he's had his couple of goals over there. I mean, I don't know what other memories you had from that Palace game, Colm.
I mean, it wasn't a great game to watch outside of those moments, but I mean, I'd take that 2-0 win every day of the week at this stage. Like, that's absolutely fantastic. I think it's another sign of progression in the team, that we can look, we draw or lose that game in, months gone by without ever creating anything close to that kind of football. And although it isn't it wasn't as consistent as we've seen previously in lockdown on this great run we've been on, but when you see it, it's still out of your seat stuff. The quality of football, we quickly become accustomed to being spoiled again by the quality of this football, and we should all remind ourselves of the absolute dirge it has been over the last, well, I don't know what you want to call it, 4 months to 6 years, but watching football like that again and that kind of interplay and the finishing and the quality that Martial has in his hold-up play and linking up with Rashford, Bruno knitting it all together. I mean, those three are just unreal, and we should, like, whatever happens in the end of the season, like, we are right in the trenches of it at the moment with regards to top four, and that puts a lot of pressure on every performance that we can quickly turn negative about. But, we have to remind ourselves that we get to watch that kind of football again, which is, I mean, totally night and day compared to what we've seen served up previously not so long ago. So for me, huge positives. I mean, to Palace, although they haven't got the results, I think they've been decent since the return lockdown. They give Chelsea a very tough time. They've been working hard, even though you could say they should be on a break. They've nothing to play for, and they just don't seem interested in slowing down anyway. So it was still a tough, combative game. They have good quality on the break with Zaha and Ayew. And there were points in that game where it could have tipped a different way. But you just feel now we'll always have the quality to kind of extract ourselves from those positions. And like the link up play and the goals are, a joy.
Yeah, the Rashford finish especially was something I really loved to see.
4 minutes being added on. Rashford. And now Rashford still onto his right foot, scores! United strike first. There's the breakthrough. What a cool and calm finish. And in first half stoppage time, United lead at Selhurst Park.
He'd not had the best return in terms of goals and assists since the restart, and I know that because I've had him in my fantasy team all the way through.
Yeah.
But he'd had as many touches in the box as any other player in the Premier League since restart, and he's really integral to a lot of our goals. Even if he's not making the assist, people talk about the pre-assist.
And played the most passes into the box, I think.
It was only I think Kevin De Bruyne. Yeah.
And a lot of those are that little inside channel pass to Martial that we talked about a few weeks ago. There's such a partnership there. And Rashford, we spoke about it a few weeks ago, but when there's more quality spread across all sort of 5 attacking positions, Rashford doesn't need to be shit hot every game, whereas he previously did have to carry us on our back throughout this season. So, he may have a quiet game or two, but the quality is there and it was clearly building. There's definitely a more mature playmaking role kind of stepping out, where he's less me and less just relying on his natural kind of pace and ability to drive past players, and much more involved in the link-up play with Bruno and Martial. So I think that's just another step in the progression of Rashford, as we're seeing with Martial, so much aided by the fact that they have Bruno there to play with and Pogba. So I had no concerns with his performances, and I kind of always knew he was going to knock a few goals in at some stage. And the way he sat down the defender and then popped it in, I mean, it was arrogant. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it was great to feel that. And yeah, we shouldn't forget that it come after, our first kind of disappointing result after lockdown had been that Southampton on Monday, which ended 2-2, especially the way it finished, to give away a kind of last-minute goal. So yeah, to come back from that straight away and bounce back with a decent win, not the easiest game, it was like a huge thing, especially when, other teams around us, Chelsea and Leicester, have been dropping points along the way. So yeah, we shouldn't forget this at all. I mean, like I say, if we switch over to think about that Southampton game, for me, it was the first time we'd had a real disappointment. Again, a lot of people are slagging off the team and whatever, but I think the big takeaway from that is that we finished that game with 10 men through no real fault of our own when Williams has to go off injured and we can't make another substitution. And for me, that is absolutely integral to us giving away that corner goal at the end. I'm sure if we were 11 versus 11, it could have gone a different way. Even though, we have had a lot of problems with defending corners this season, it's something that hadn't been an issue since lockdown has restarted. But earlier in the season, we had that horrible stat where we kept giving away goals at corners again and again and again. I mean, Jamie, I don't know, do you think Williams would have made the difference, or was it just inevitable that this Southampton goal was coming in that game?
I don't think it was inevitable. I did think going into the game that this was the first time that I wasn't totally comfortable, that not so much of emerging undefeated still, but I was just a bit wary that we weren't maybe going to be on the ball and get the 3 points, purely off the fact that when I've watched us play Southampton at home in the last few years, we haven't been that great. I know we won 3-2 against them last season, but going back over the last 3 or 4 years, we've been beaten by them a couple of times at home. They tend to give us a difficult game. Coming into the game, they were also in really good form. I think they must be the fittest team in the league because they press all over the pitch non-stop for 90 minutes. So I was a bit wary that yeah, it might not be the victory we were looking for, but it still might be a point. Regarding the end of the game, I don't know. I don't know if it's maybe the one body less has put us a bit more under pressure. So rather than trying to control the ball and move up the pitch, we were just clearing it any time it came near the box. We were just getting rid of it. Or whether it was just that individual mistake that we make again at the front post. We lose the ball at the front post. It's flicked on. That's then compounded by the fact that he is rooted to his spot, hasn't moved. Lindelof, I thought Lindelof actually had a pretty good game against Southampton, but he's caught in his heels, whereas the Southampton forward, who I've never heard of before, moves in front of him and taps the ball in, and I think it's just one of those things, unfortunately. The rest of the game, I thought we started off really lethargic, and it was the second game in a row that I thought we started off quite slow, because I thought we were quite slow out the blocks against Aston Villa as well. And to watch that Southampton game back, I thought we're really slow here again, and it's almost as if we needed Southampton to score that goal to really kick us on, because immediately after the goal we actually started playing a wee bit. We started getting the ball down, passing it well. The front three started to get the ball in between themselves and make those wee triangles and start moving. So that was the first game that I've watched since the restart where I thought I was quite disappointed in the opening 20 minutes. We turned it round pretty quickly. Pogba, I've loved Pogba since the restart, and I love Pogba anyway, but that game, it was really careless from him, I thought, because again, against Aston Villa, he gave the ball away to, I think it was Trezeguet, and Trezeguet runs by him after winning the ball and hits the post. We get lucky in that game because he hits the post, we go up the park and we score. But he makes the same error against Southampton and they punish us. And it's almost just as if, I don't know if it was maybe because we were on such a good run, we were getting a bit complacent, thinking, doesn't matter who you put in front of us, we'll beat them, we'll steamroll them, doesn't matter who we're playing. And it's almost as if we needed that shock of the Southampton goal to get us going in that game. And then I thought we were actually, again, we got in front and we were not bad. Southampton played really well, but I thought we grew into the game. The Williams injury at the end is just really unfortunate, and I think the goal at the end is just a result of just individual errors and just a lapse in concentration, and they just managed to steal a goal.
I think that Southampton game was quite interesting because, as you say, we definitely did start slow, just as we did against Aston Villa. But Southampton were employing like a ridiculously high press, keeping a very high back line, and then MacArthur was basically playing outside of his box most of the game, as we wish De Gea would for us. So it was really interesting. Hasenhüttl had them set up extremely well, and it gave us something we hadn't had a look at since lockdown. You know, the teams that had come in and sat in against us, we'd been able to dominate the ball, control everything, and when we wanted to, we were able to open them up and score 2, 3, 4 goals, and that was everything. You know, everything was great. We were smashing everyone. So that were a different proposition, and Matic ended up having to drop out of the midfield and play alongside the centre backs. We could not get out past that press. Pogba then, I mean, when he gives the ball away for that goal, he ends up getting dispossessed just outside the penalty box, having just been given the ball from De Gea, so there was no margin for error. The one, when we did actually score, it was the one time Wan-Bissaka was actually able to play out through them from wide, get it into the middle, having beat their press, and then we were onto them, and that's where the first goal for us came back. And again, it was another incident where we saw United come back and go down, re-establish a lead within the half, and I thought that was brilliant again. You know, you got the 2 goals back, bam, bam, and then we're looking good, there's no issues. But the second half, I mean, we just let Southampton dominate us again physically, and again, we could not play out. The subs didn't help. Again, you sort of see that the second, you know, McTominay and Fred aren't in great form, and we just really struggled to play out at all. And after that, I think we were just a bit shaken, and it just became a bit of a siege mentality thing. And to be honest, if we see out that game with the injuries and the subs and the stuff like that, you're probably saying stuff of champions, you know, to go to Southampton, tricky, just beating City, get the 2 goals back after an early setback and see it out. You know, you'd be saying that's something that United never did over the last sort of year or two, and we'd all be celebrating it, even though it wasn't a good performance. But that's what happens in football. Sometimes you don't write it out, and you can see the late goal, which is a freak goal in of itself, even though there are mistakes in there, and you just have to take your medicine with that. But again, I think a bit of tiredness and a bit of nerviness just meant that, you know, we gave them that opportunity. It was a little disappointing to see that we couldn't just put our foot in the ball a bit more and play out with a little bit more quality. And I think that's where we're now seeing that in a few games this week, where that is a bit of an issue when Pope maybe isn't at the races, or when teams do employ quite a structured high press or something like that and put us under a bit of pressure, that we're not actually that hot playing it out and getting it over the halfway line and up to our absolutely scintillating front four, but if we can't get them the ball, then we're going to always have that issue,
I've said for a while that, I always feel a bit nervous with this playing out from the back, and unless you get it bang on, it is always a risky business that if you give away the ball in the wrong place. There was one thing though, I don't know if you saw this video about where the ball comes into Pogba. And now because there's no crowd there, you can hear a lot more stuff from the players on some of these videos. And you don't hear any shout to Pogba of man on. And it might just be the way the mics are. Maybe somebody did say it. It's not conclusive. But yeah, I've watched that video a few times. Definitely don't hear it. And you can even hear like Ralph Hasenthal on the line shouting at his players to close down and everything.
Yeah. Also, I wouldn't crucify Pogba for that, because he was the only player trying to beat the press. All the pressure was hit on him to go in. Matic dropped in beside the centre backs to just stand beside them basically to receive the ball. But that meant all the pressure was on Pogba to play in that little pocket and try and free himself up, try and spin a man and then release United. So, if he wasn't going to do it, no one was going to do it. So, yeah, maybe doing it on the edge of your box isn't the best thing in the world, but if he wasn't going to do it, we never would have got the ball past our back four. Do you know what I mean? So that's a lot to put on Paul Pogba there, even though it was, by his standards, you would expect him to do it.
It's not even that I expected. The thing that bothers me, though, is that you could see that it really affected him mentally. He was still moaning about it ages later, think like the water break or something. You could see he was still going on about it. Ole obviously said something to him, and you could see that he wasn't
didn't react that well to it. Yeah.
That's a problem. He needs to get that out of his game. You make a mistake, if you're the right kind of pro, you just forget it and you just get on with it. Whereas it then affects him for the rest of the game. And as you said, Jamie, he didn't have a great game. And I think he ends up getting substituted, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Fred comes on around the hour mark. It's something he needs to look at. But yeah, at first I thought he was just totally annoyed with himself. But now I feel maybe he was annoyed that he didn't get a call and that now he's going to get the blame for this. And, I know that kind of position where if you're receiving the ball that way and if you don't get the call, then it's the fault of the rest of your team for not communicating with you and telling you what's going on. But yeah, you said, Jamie, that you've never heard of Obafemi. The big bugbear as well is that he actually comes on for Oriol Romeu.
Oh, man.
And, there's a big question mark. Should he have even been on the pitch at that point?
I was absolutely raging with that because obviously none of us seen it in real time because there was no mention of it whatsoever. It was only later on when the cameras picked up the VAR was looking at something. I have no idea what VAR are looking at in that tackle to deem that not even worthy of a booking. Eni Luco and Matt Letizia were covering the game. And Matt Letizia was so blatantly biased and said, "No chance. That's never a sending off. It's not even a foul.
Yeah.
If anything, he goes down a bit easy." So Matt Letizia is basically saying Greenwood should only be going down with a broken leg there, and maybe it's a red card. Whereas Eni Luco totally disagreed with him and said, "You can actually see he doesn't run and then misstep on Greenwood. He runs, stops just short of Greenwood and then takes the extra step into Greenwood's ankle. There is absolutely no reason or anything you can give to say why he's done that other than he was trying to do him. He was trying to stop him by any means necessary, and unfortunately that meant stamping on him. Because I can't fathom how he would have ran into him that way. He just wouldn't have ran into him that way. What he's done is he's ran up to him and then he's taken that extra step with that nasty bite right into the tackle. Quite frankly, Greenwood's lucky his foot's not planted on the ground. Because if his foot's planted on the ground there and that tackle comes in, you're looking at a potential leg-breaking tackle. So, absolutely no way he should have been on the park. None.
Yeah, it just makes you wonder what VAR is for. And Eni Luco was very good. Matt Letizia was awful in commentary, but Eni Luco was very good throughout that about the whole game. But
yeah, I agree.
I mean, he just wants to leave one on him. Greenwood had just had that was Greenwood's kind of slump, recent slump there after being so good for the few games before. And clearly they were just saying, look, you're not going to have it so easy today. We'll smash you about. And that's fine. Bad challenges happen in football. Teams go out to try and physically intimidate, particularly younger players and flair players and stuff like that. That's fine. But what can VAR be looking at there? And I think maybe if if they think it's a yellow, they basically can't do anything. But if they think it's a red, I don't understand. I don't know that anyone understands that they understand themselves. But it just seemed like, what's the point?
The reason that VAR they keep chickening out of these things is because of this line where they keep saying if it's not clear and obvious.
That is clear and
And
obvious.
it just gives them this get out clause that unless like somebody's literally come and punched somebody in the face, that we can just say, oh, it's not that obvious, so we're just going to go on with
To
it.
any follower, not even a follower of football, anyone would look at that and go, surely you're not allowed to do that.
Apart from Matt Letizia, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. It's just ridiculous.
No, yeah, that was crazy. Like I say, at the end of this, it really feels like when Williams isn't on the pitch, when you've had that earlier in the game, to come out with that game 2-2 is like quite difficult to take. Although, to be honest, I was actually quite surprised. We always talk about XG, and earlier in the season, I was always bringing it out to try and show that I thought we were actually playing better than we were getting credit for. But in this game, again, I thought, oh, look, it's a smash and grab from Southampton. But then I saw a lot of the media and a lot of ABU friends of mine say, no, look, Southampton were great. They totally deserved it. And actually, looking at the XG, in fact, it suggests that we were actually potentially lucky to come away with a draw, because it was 1.5 for us, 1.8 for Southampton, which is close. But it's saying that, yeah, they actually had slightly better chances than us on the day, even though I remember like their goalie making a couple of good saves and that we did have other chances.
No, I thought it went that way. I thought after the 2 goals, we just stopped. I thought second half we didn't come out to play at all. And it was very disappointing, because we could have put them to the sword. We absolutely could have put them to the sword. Leaving aside the red card and the last minute winner and all that kind of stuff, they still pretty much dominated that game in the second half.
See, they dominated the second half, but you're forgetting there's the two we didn't play that well, but we had the 2 chances where Rashford runs through and
Martial should score.
And all he's got to do is square it to Martial, and Martial's got a tap in, but we muck it up from more or less underneath the bar. Martial has to score the chance he has.
The one-on-one.
Yeah, the one-on-one,
yeah.
And then there's another, I can't remember who it was, but there's another chance in the second half where we run through again. I think it might be Rashford, and he just skies it miles over the bar.
Yeah, we did have chances. We did. But as I say, XG kind of suggests that a draw was a fair result on the day. But as I say, look, I don't want to. I still think it's actually been a good week for us, because for me, the most important thing is that top 4, and we've made up ground there. It's all in our hands now. So yeah, for me, I don't want to look back on this week, and even though there has been disappointing performances, see it as like a negative time. I think that, look, if we look at the big picture, we're going in the right direction. I mean, yeah, coming up now is 2 massive games that are effectively like 2 cup finals. And yeah, the players have to get ready for that. Yeah, West Ham first up, good old chosen one, David Moyes coming back again. And I actually was at the Olympic Stadium earlier in the season, which was one of the worst days that I remember going as a United fan. It was when we were in our really bad run of form. I even remember going to that match, and it was a couple of friends of mine who at half time said, we're not going back out, because we know it's awful and we're not going to get this game back. We were losing at half time. And I was like, what? Come on. How can you? And they said, no, we're just going to stay here and drink in the concourse. We'll see you after the game. That's literally like what happened, because like people were like just not. But it was the time when we had Pereira, Lingard were our main like midfield, and there wasn't a lot of confidence going on. So yeah, I still remember being at that game, but it's quite a different time now. David Moyes, but yeah, they're on good form, West Ham, and that Antonio up front has actually scored more goals than anyone since the restart of lockdown. Another
4
thing,
in one game helps.
Yeah, 4 in one game. Murdered me in fantasy football. I'm literally about 20 points behind the leader, and he had Antonio for those 4 goals. So I'm blaming him for losing me the whole bloody fantasy. But there's also, they've got this Jared Bowen in as well. I don't know if you've seen much of him. He came in like in the winter window, and had actually kind of been tipped off. A friend of mine's a Hull fan, and he basically said, listen, he's been keeping us up this season, and that when they sold him, he said, we're going down now, because he was literally our whole team and the only reason we weren't in the relegation zone. And he'd put quite a big bet on Hull going down, just literally based on that transfer. And he's going to win a fair bit of money, because Hull have been absolutely awful, got spanked about 7-8-0 the other day. But yeah, this Bowen has had 4 or 5 assists already, and it looks like he was going to be a pretty good player for them. So yeah, we shouldn't take this game for granted. I think the good thing is that West Ham are now more or less safe. Makes a big difference, but it doesn't mean they're going to just turn up and not be bothered. It just, it never works out that way. And I can even remember West Ham couple of times pissing us off when they had nothing to play for at the business end of the season. So yeah, I'm sure Moyes as well isn't going to do us any favours. But I mean, yeah, we can't see anything apart from winning that game and then ideally, we may not even need to win our last game. I mean, yeah, Colm, you must now feel confident that we're going to be finishing top 4 and even third. And I know that not too many months ago, you thought that was basically impossible.
Oh, totally impossible, I would have said. I mean, you almost don't want to talk about it. I'd rather stay on the podcast because I think we're all just sitting there holding ourselves, wanting the season to be over and know how it ends up, because it would be so crushing to miss out. Because as you say, when you look at the other fixtures particularly Leicester, but also Chelsea, we should really be odds on. I haven't looked at the actual betting odds, but we seem to be in kind of pole position, even though at the moment we're the ones sitting fifth. We just have to go out and win, and I think West Ham is an eminently winnable game. I don't think they will harry us and press us the way Southampton did, and therefore I think we should control the game. And with the way our forwards are playing, it's just hard to envisage us not winning. Winning well would also be extremely good because goal difference could be a factor. And with Spurs spanking Leicester there, that's really swung in our favour as well. I mean, the results post-lockdown could literally not have gone better for us, even when you take our performances, our points total out of it. Other teams have just slipped up always, when we needed them to. So it should just be a win, and then it would be class if it didn't come down to the Leicester game, because that's going to be a nervy day. But there's also a possibility, it could work out that it's Leicester and United who just need to play out a draw,
if Liverpool beat Chelsea.
Yeah, exactly. If Chelsea and Leicester went out as well. And I mean, I would love, especially after yesterday, I would love Chelsea to miss top 4. If they're getting Kai Havertz and all the rest of it, and they just seem in a nice wee positive moment at the moment, I would die of happiness if it was us and Leicester, because Leicester, who even cares, But if Chelsea missed out on it, I just think that'd be quality.
Oh yeah, that would definitely, that would be my ideal scenario for us to finish third, Leicester fourth, and Chelsea fifth. That would be the absolute perfect end of the season.
West Ham, I've just had a look there because I think Antonio's been playing well, but I have been impressed by one of their midfielders. I don't know how you pronounce his name. I think it's Souček, Tomáš Souček, and he scored 3 goals in 5 games for them.
Yeah.
One was against Chelsea, one against Newcastle, and one against Watford. And whenever I've watched West Ham play in the last couple of weeks, I have been impressed by him. I think he's a decent midfielder. So I think they have got a few players that can cause a couple of problems. But just to give you some stats that I had a look at, so West Ham have beaten us 3 times in the last 8 in the league. But when it comes to Old Trafford, we've won 3 out of the last 5. The last time West Ham actually beat us was in 2007. That was the year Tevez scored the winner, and we'd already won the league.
Oh yeah, I was there for that. I remember that day. It kind of slightly dampened our celebration, but still, yeah, we were getting the trophy that day.
Yeah, so that was the last time they beat us at Old Trafford, and according to football.com, 31% of the games at Old Trafford we've won, with an average of 2.26 goals for us versus 0.9 for West Ham. So according to stats, we should batter them, really.
I mean, my only slight little concern in the pit of my stomach is that you could just see that leather-faced David Moyes showing up, having delivered us mediocrity when he was managing United, guaranteed us Europa League back then, coming back and putting the nail in the coffin for Ole's top 4 hopes this year. I mean, it would just be one of those football stories that is like a self-fulfilling prophecy at that stage, do you know what I mean? Where it's just bound to happen against all logic and stats, and God, I think he would love that, because you just know he has a big chip on his shoulder about his abject failure at United and that he deserved better and more time, etc. You probably would have gave to him, Nick, but not really.
No, I wouldn't. I know that's pre podcast, but I never wanted David Moyes and was never really. I gave him a slight chance, but I was never a supporter of his, so I was happy when he left. But yeah.
But that's my only reservation. But hopefully it's not a problem. Hopefully other results continue to go our way, and it's just, I mean, as I say, I don't think you can put too much negativity on this week, even though it hasn't been ideal, and that there have been holes shown there after we were on top of the world. I think it's maybe not the worst thing in the world, as I said at the top of the show, to just humble us slightly for this run-in. But if we get fourth, it ceases to matter. It ceases to matter, and that's the main thing. So
yeah,
we just have to get through it now.
Yeah, like I say, my only slight worry is about the fitness of the team, and that players have not had a rest where they could have done, and that, they're not going to get around. These two games are cup finals. We have to put that first 11 out in both of these two games. There's no option of really rotation apart from, if people aren't fit. Everybody's got to play these two. So, let's see what comes up now. I'm confident that we can get back to how we were playing a week before and come up and do the challenge we need to. But as I say, that is my just slight reservation. Is all about the squad management, who's played too many minutes, and that they can get through these last two. And then I know we've still got a Europa League to come, and I'm sure we'll talk about that on a future episode. But if we've got the top four already, then Europa League's just the bonus time to go and have like a kind of mini pre-season, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's probably about as good a point as any to finish up this week. As I say, I don't think it should be looked at as a negative week, even though one loss, one draw and a win isn't the best after the run we'd been on. We have lost our 19-game unbeaten run, but anybody who looks at the big picture and sees where we've come these few months, I think you really need to just stay positive. And there's always people online coming out with nonsense, and I see people again who were Ole out, and I'm not talking about you, Colm, because you've never been in the really extreme crazy category, but again,
always objective.
Yeah, people are peeping their head out again, and as if like, oh, I told you so, look, and I'm like, come on, this is not the time of United fans to start coming out with this.
In fairness to Jamie, I think I've noticed on the calf, despite his extremely dour Glasgow accent, he's actually an extremely positive Ole Manchester United supporter as well, so don't be fooled by the accent.
Yeah, I have, got into quite a few arguments, I think, in the Ole out thread, which, in my opinion, has just descended into total madness at this point anyway.
Probably started in madness, never mind descending.
Early on the season, it really wasn't great. It wasn't. But you look at things like Pogba's out injured for practically the whole season. Martial's missed months of the season. Rashford's missed months of the season. We're playing, as Colm said earlier on, and as you said, Nick, about the West Ham game, we're playing with like Pereira and Lingard and other fringe players for most of that first half of the season, just trying to get through serious injury problems and serious form issues. And as you both said as well, pre-lockdown, the team we had isn't a reflection on the team we now have. It's a totally different team. We play a totally different way. We look more confident. We attack much better. There is a bit of shape. There is tiredness issues, totally. But we're a totally different side now. And I just think people being a bit reactionary after a loss, after a draw last week, I think it's just a little bit of rational thinking is needed at times. And just you have to honestly look at the team and say, are we in a better position now than we were 9 months ago, 12 months ago? Yes, we are. We need to get the job finished. We need to win on Wednesday. We need to get a decent result on Sunday. But ultimately, if we come third or fourth and then we can have a crack at the Europa League, it's a massive improvement on last season. And of course, he deserves more time.
Definitely. And I don't know if we'll manage to come back after West Ham, so we might actually just record now after we know where we're at, and that'll be, big end to a season, like I say. 2 cup finals essentially coming up for us here. Let's see where Ole can get us. We'll see you at the other end of that, and either it's going to be the celebration podcast or we'll be drowning our sorrows. But get the champagne on ice, because I think it's going to be a good end to the season.
Absolutely.
We'll be out in the concourse by halftime.
All right, that's a good night for me.
Cheerio.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.